Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Rocket Sports Report. I'm the Rocket Sports Editor, Justin Krause, joined as always by the Rockets Editor-in-Chief, Cody Nesper. We have a very special guest this week, the Slippery Rock University women's basketball head coach, Bobby McGraw. Coach McGraw, it's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the time.
So if anybody goes to a Slippery Rock women's basketball game, the first thing they're going to notice is your voice and a lot of it. Every game that you go to, you're always going to be yelling a lot. So I just got to know, how often do you get hoarse, and do you do anything to preserve your voice?
Well, I'll tell you what, fella, I get asked that question a lot, and I literally don't do anything to preserve my voice. Literally, one time in the last 4 years, during a practice, I went hoarse, and the players loved it because I couldn't talk anymore. But you can thank the voice and the bass. You can thank the United States Marine Corps and the Pennsylvania State Police for the bass and the volume, and it just stays constant pretty much.
So you brought it up. I think you have one of the more interesting backstories of any of the coaches here, that you were in the Marines and you were a state trooper. So can you compare and contrast being a Pennsylvania State Trooper and being a women's basketball head coach?
A few years ago when I first got the job, a reporter from the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review asked me a very similar question, and I feel very blessed to have the background that I do, because now when a situation arises that for some coaches is the end of the world, like a kid failing a test, or this person's having a bad day, or they just broke up with their significant other, unless you've talked to people who are now on death row or people who have committed heinous crimes, it's not that big a deal. Losing a basketball game, even though you guys know I consider myself to be an intense competitor, at the end of the day, it's not that big a deal with the background that I actually come from. Having experienced literally life or death situations, this is the greatest job in the world.
It's a few years ago, whenever you started here, you were a volunteer coach with Coach Reynolds for the men's basketball team. So just knowing you and knowing Coach Reynolds' personalities, just how did that all work together, coaching for a full season?
Well, I'll tell you what, it worked very well, because you guys don't realize, but I can play good cop very well. So when I was working with Kevin, to be the assistant, to be the person that the players leaned on, to come and say, man, coach is really upsetting me. That was fun, being a good cop for a while there. And having been at La Roche the two years prior, and having been a high school assistant, it was an easy transition. So there's what you see now as a head coach, you would not have saw with Coach Reynolds, because there's a hierarchy, and there's a chain of command, and there's just certain things that the way it's got to be with head coaches and assistant coach. So we didn't have two people barking at them all the time. Kevin was barking at them, and then they were crying on my shoulder.
So when people come to a game, sometimes they'll see you with your son, either he's on the bench or in the stands somewhere. And then even during the men's games, I think a lot of the time we see you hanging out with him on the track or something like that. So is he Slippery Rock's biggest fan, do you think?
He's growing. He's growing to love the university more and more. He asked me a question yesterday at dinner if I was still going to be the coach when he was a Rock police officer. So I told him I hope so. That's a long time away, but he loves being around the team. The team genuinely, you can tell that they love having him around. Keeps you grounded too, because I'll tell you guys, he was at the Walsh game. He didn't care if we beat Walsh by 40, lost by 40, won by 3, lost by 3. He just wanted to play, police officer after the game. So yeah, it's fun having him around, and he wants to know if Rocky's real. That's the biggest thing. And where Rocky lives.
When are you planning to break that news to him?
No time soon. Maybe after Santa Claus. So we got a few years.
So speaking of your son and more of your personal life, what are some of the things you do to unwind after the intensity that you bring as a coach?
I'll tell you, he's a big part of that. Like I said, we had a 3-game winning streak there. Walsh, we lost to a very, very good Walsh team. Team coming in, 2 out of the 3 losses were the #1 team in the country, #7 team in the country. So an immediate unwind for me is having my son present, because like I said, he doesn't care. He liked being on the bench. Halftime, he wanted to go up and get his police stuff. He does. So a big part of me unwinding afterwards is spending time with my son. And if he's not with me, whether I'm FaceTiming him or talking to him. And as crazy as it sounds, being as big a fan of the game of basketball, I really enjoy watching basketball when I'm not coaching basketball. No matter who's playing. Coastal Carolina's playing Mercer at 1 o'clock in the morning. If I'm awake, I'm probably watching the game. And it's a lot easier watching on TV saying, I can't believe that coach just did that, than having it happen live. So, yeah, I mean, watching basketball and being around the game is something I do to actually unwind. Because there's no pressure whatsoever when you're watching somebody else. You can second guess them.
We asked Coach Lutz the same question a couple weeks ago, and he said he likes to watch reality TV. You don't do anything like that?
No, I don't. I'm not a fan of unreality TV. Let's put it that way. And Coach Lutz, to be honest with you, and I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you, it's pretty close to what my favorite sport is, and college football is right there. And Coach Lutz, the players will tell you, I spend a ton of time at football practice in the off season. My son loves going to football practice, so I watch a lot of football too. Yeah, I'll take that over reality TV any day.
All right, we got one more question for you, and then we'll get out of your hair.
I wish.
So, if it was you and Coach Reynolds one-on-one, who would win?
Oh, I'd murder him. Listen, he wasn't a good jump shooter. I don't care what he tells me. So I'd back off him, short closeouts, make him shoot the ball over the top, but he's not going to get a rebound. So no question, no question.
All right, thanks for coming on, Coach. It's always great to talk to you.
Blast.
We'll be back next week with the last Rocket Sports Report of the semester. Until then, good luck on finals, happy studying, and watch some women's basketball. They're not at home, but keep an eye on them.
Go Rock.